Huh? It must be Gordon on his way back from Vickerstown. Huh? What the... Who in the name of Smokebugs and Pistons are you? It can't be! That's my great-grandfather's engine!
I'm not surprised. I remember you back when you were just a child. Count your lucky stars, boy, for you're not on the wanted list.
Count my lucky stars?
Your great-grandfather was once a good man, someone who many thought was a friend. But his mistrust ended up costing his life, thanks to that engine on the CSW years ago. And do you know why? Because I was that engine!
Season at its end, the arrival of autumn soon made its presence known on the island of Sodor. The engines of the Northwestern Railway were working hard with great pride. However, this particular autumn season had brought some new visitors to the island over from America. The visitors were two engines from the Norfolk and Western. They were David, the sole surviving 2664 Class A, number 1218, and Luis, a restored class of the J locomotives. Along with them came Ariel, a surviving 440 from the Pennsylvania Railroad, Luke, a 210-4 from the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe Railroad, and Jason, a replica of a 28884 triplex locomotive from the Erie Railroad. The Fed controller had given them a special visit to spend the autumn season on the railway and to allow the public to get their chance to see what these massive locomotives were like in their day. The engines themselves, they found the people to be among the most amazing and respectful rail fans of all time. Even the Fat Controller's engines agreed with that statement. One evening at the sheds, Rosie, Thomas, Emily, Gordon, and Edward were talking to David, Luis, and Ariel about supernatural stories that had happened on the railway over the years.
Your railroad is full of all kinds of unknown and ghostly things that are full of mysteries.
And not to mention, some are just as scarier as the ones we've encountered back at home in the United States.
You can say that again, Louise.
What's it like over there? None of us have ever been to the railways you run on.
Please tell us.
It ain't like what you have here. The railways in America are much longer and bigger, and we engines can do more work than any others. We pull much heavier passenger and freight trains and can go long distances. But at times we have to let diesels help us out for dynamic braking.
The other engines were impressed.
Is there anything out of the supernatural, like any legends or ghost stories that have been told on the rails?
We've had several, but none of them would ever scare you.
Well, I'll accept the curse of the clinchfied.
Don't bring that up, Louise. She might come here and curse these locos and their railroad.
Who will?
Who's Clinchfield?
What curse?
Oh, now you've gone and done it. We promised to never mention it to the others, or you know what might happen.
The engines looked at each other with curiosity and interest, wanting to know very badly. The three American locomotives had no other choice but to tell them.
The engine that comes from this story is legendary and very haunted.
You mean like the untold story of Timothy that we told you about?
You could say that, but this one has been talked about for almost 6 decades, and everyone in America knows about it. Many steam engines and diesels had their own strange and dark tales, but this engine is the mother of all ghost stories on the railroad. Clinchfield 311.
Clinchfield 311?
That doesn't ring any bells to me, for it's an unfamiliar name.
None of you have ever heard of her until now. She was an old 482 mountain-type locomotive built in 1949 serving the Campton Southwestern Railroad. She had been with the company for about 5 months, but her history was very troublesome. She had a bad luck streak. It almost led to her scrapping. But she had been with the company for about 5 months, but her history was very troublesome. She had a bad luck streak. It almost led to her scrapping, but she was sent to work on the Clinchfield. However, it only got worse after arriving in Colorado. 311 was what railroad men called a hoodooed or jinx locomotive, meaning that she was a rolling disaster waiting to happen whether she liked it or not. During her career with the Clinchfield, she had unintentionally injured and killed 20 railroad men, and all because of this jinx. Because of all this, 311 was yanked off the Clinch roster in late 1956 and was placed in an unused storage track in Elkhorn Shop Complex where she awaited her fate. But that was not to be, for she was saved by the manager of the CSW, where he was in search of a large freight locomotive to handle the lumber contract at the time. After lengthy negotiations, the Elkhorn yardmaster finally gave the manager the 311 for free. After that, she was restored to working order and moved out west under her own power. And remarkably, there were no incidents during the 1,369.3-mile cross-country run. That was not to be, for she was saved by the lengthy negotiations. The Elkhorn yardmaster finally. After that, she was restored to working order and moved out west under her own power. And remarkably, there were no incidents during the 1,369.3-mile cross-country run. For the first time in a long time, 311 had a bright future, now being owned by a railroad that cared about her.
Well, thank goodness she didn't get sent away for scrapping. That's how I lost all my LNEI brothers and sisters. All except one survived, and I know how sad I felt.
What about the other engines who worked there on Clinchfield? Were any of them friends with 311?
Yes, there were. My driver had recently made a discovery 2 months ago before we came here. He was clearing out the yardmaster's desk at the now-closed Irwin, Tennessee yard when he discovered an old picture taken back at Dante, Virginia in 1952. She couldn't understand it herself, no matter what. Something was out of her control, and no one could ever tell the real reason. Deep, higher conversation.